Government has committed to giving SAA funding to the tune of 10.5 billion rand. The embattled airline's business rescue practitioners and the creditors held an urgent meeting after an earlier funding deadline was missed. Let's get reaction now from the Democratic Alliance on how the government has been handling the SAA matter. I'm joined by Alf Lees, Democratic Alliance MP. Alf, thank you so much for your time. In fact, let's start there. How do you think government has fared in handling this SAA matter?
Good afternoon, Unati. Yeah, very, very badly, quite obviously. They've been talking up over the last few months the possibility of getting investors to take equity in the airline. That clearly hasn't worked out. And now they've got their backs against the wall because they committed themselves to find this money. Now, they haven't been able to find it outside of the state, and so now they're looking at another bailout, and the Department of Public Enterprises media statement issued about an hour or two ago indicates that they're going to present a adjustments appropriation bill to Parliament to reprioritize funding. Well, we've reprioritized funding for COVID-19. We certainly don't need to do it for SAA. And indeed, our information is that National Treasury and the Department of Finance, who would have to introduce such an appropriation bill, have not agreed to do so. So where the DPE is getting this authority to issue this statement seems very, very strange indeed.
In fact, in its statement, it says that the national carrier will not be liquidated. One line which spells out that they are very, very, feel strongly about this decision. And secondly, they say that at the same time, the DPE will continue to assess the 20 unsolicited expressions of interest from private sector funders, private investors, etc. How close are you as the DA to this situation, and do you perhaps have any light on the 20 unsolicited expressions that have been approached by government?
Not at all. They've kept them very close to their chest, if they exist at all. I would suggest to you that there may well be 20 unsolicited approaches, but that there are chances who think they can get the airline and its assets for a song. And so I would suggest to you that those unsolicited approaches are not going to materialize into anything substantial. Otherwise, it would have been the case already. They've been talking about these for months now. So it doesn't take this long to seal a deal. And so that's really where we are at the moment. They're now going to, instead of using money to try and stimulate the economy, they're going to take tax money or borrow the money and stimulate SAA for a further bailout and carry on with the losses that it's been expressing or seeing from SAA for over a decade.
Now, unions have promised to take further action if this bailout money is not received by next week. We know that there have been delays dating back to December of 2019. How practical do you think this is?
Well, I would hope. I mean, the indications are that they're going to go to the commercial banks yet again to get some short-term funding while they try and get the necessary laws, legal procedure through Parliament. Well, I would hope that the commercial banks do the ethical thing and refuse to lend on the back of taxpayer guarantees, knowing full well that the money is going to come from the taxpayers. And so that's the only way that the funding might be available next week, is if the commercial banks capitulate to the pressure from the DPE to lend SAA the money to keep going and to pay the voluntary severance packages. It would be a very sad day for South Africa if the banks yet again fail in their ethical obligations to assess a client properly and not to lend this money to SAA because SAA is bankrupt and cannot repay the loans. The loans will have to be repaid by the taxpayer, and the banks know that.
And in fact, that is going to be my next question. Should this 10.5 billion rands be made available before that meeting with the rescue practitioners, what's the most pressing need for SAA at the moment? I mean, they've made several commitments.
Well, Nati, yeah, I mean, the most pressing need, if the money is made available, would clearly be the dealing with the employees' voluntary severance package. The employees have been led around the bush about this retrenchment package. It's a very, very good package. They would not see such a package if the airline were to be liquidated. And it's way beyond what the 3 million odd people and rising who've found themselves losing their jobs during COVID, way more than they hope to ever see. So that would, I presume, be the priority for the business rescue practitioners. And of course, they've got to get SAA back in the air. If you don't get the aircraft flying, the few that are now left, because they've returned most of the aircraft, I understand, although I'm not getting replies to my parliamentary questions to the Minister of Public Enterprises about the aircraft they now have. But they need to get those aircraft flying if they need to start generating some revenue to start at least trying to become profitable and not rely on ever more taxpayer bailouts.